4LG.
It is Classic Hits on 1098 4LG, and this morning I am joined by the lovely Erin for our Pure Country segment. Erin, good morning and welcome to 4LG.
Good morning, Courtney, and good morning to all the listeners out there.
So I've been teasing people this morning, telling them that you are very passionate about the bush and about, people that are living in rural areas. So perhaps you should maybe introduce yourself a little bit so people can get a bit more of an idea of sort of where you're coming from.
Okay, that sounds fantastic. My name's Erin. I am a second-year journalist with James Cook University over in Townsville at the Townsville campus. I actually came back to university as a mature-age student. So in my younger years, straight out of high school, I went to agricultural college in the Vatican, and then I spent a couple years as a Jillaroo in the Northern Territory. I've worked for the DPI. I've worked in and around the world, over in the US in Jillaroo style for ranches. And I guess you can say I was city bred, but country born at heart.
Okay.
So I've always been passionate about the bush, passionate about agriculture and rural communities and what actually happens, because I've always seen that, these guys, your listeners especially, they really are the backbone of a lot of different areas within, I guess, general life. Yeah. They produce food, they produce opportunities, and realistically, a lot of people from the bush or in the agricultural sector are probably the real benefits to some of the things that we have today in the modern world because of their almost out-of-the-box thinking and having to think on their feet.
Yep.
So, yeah, I love the bush, love everything about it.
Okay, awesome. And something that you're really pushing at the moment is for people that are in the outback and in the bush to have, their thoughts and their feelings heard, because of course we know that we've had the rural meeting in Winton, we've had one in Charters Towers, and I know that the communities out here do feel like what they're trying to get across to the government and to people in charge is that they're not being heard. But you've got some ways to help us get their voices heard, don't you?
Yes. Well, one of the things in doing my degree is I kind of forgot to mention that I actually fell into journalism purely by chance and by accident. And this is where I found that I can do the most good for the industry that I care and love so much. Mm-hmm. And in that I specialise in rural and Western lifestyles and sport.
Okay.
And I ended up going to the Charters Towers Drought Crisis Conference a couple of weeks ago with my editor from the Times Australian Outback magazine, which is an online publication. Mm-hmm. And to sit there and listen to what, the Agricultural Minister for Australia, Bill Byrne, was saying, speakers such as Charlie Phillip, Robbie Catter, Bob Catter, and a couple of other guest speakers, is you guys do have a voice and you need to be heard. However, I think it needs to be done in the right way, and no one's really giving you guys the opportunity or really the tools on where to go or how to start it.
Yeah.
Because a lot of your listeners will live remotely. Mm-hmm. So it's not like they can run down to the local council building and sort of say, hey guys, I want to have a meeting with you. They've got stock to feed, water runs, lick runs. And I asked Robbie Catter, who's on the Australian Party, what is your advice for everybody in the bush to get their voices heard? Mm-hmm. And he told me, and this is his words, the music has got to come from the people. So in simple words, you can speak up. Don't think that you're alone. The Australian Party is there to have your back. But it's time to speak up because members of the Australian Party will be there to have your back. So...
Okay, well, I mean, it's all well and good to say that you've got to speak up, but the question is how? How do, locals actually have their voices heard? Like, what mediums do they need to be using?
Okay, well, here's the fun part. Journalism in itself has moved into, like, a new era. So this is where if you have access to the internet or especially like if you've got kids doing School of the Air, they will have access to the internet for their schooling. This is where you can either write an email into magazines or newspapers like the Australian Times, the Courier Mail, the Sydney Herald. You can write blogs. There's social media platforms like Facebook and Twitter where there's groups that are specifically organised and are an organisation to speak on behalf of their members for people who are in remote areas.
Yeah.
But even magazines, like you've got R.M. Williams, you've now got the Times Australian Outback online print magazine. If you're a dairy farmer or you really love, a good block of cheese and you're passionate about that, but it still comes back down to you down the line where you're affected, write into a foodie magazine. Say, hey guys, this is the situation we're in. You're not always going to be guaranteed to get something printed, but if you keep writing back each month, keep your story going out there, I can guarantee you will get someone's attention at some stage.
Okay.
There will be a journalist or an editor that will be like, hang on, this person's just written in, 6 months in a row every week. I think we need to have a chat to them. I think they've got something to say, and that's where you get that door open.
Okay, so it's just about that consistency of pretty much just pounding down doors and not letting anyone forget that you've got an issue and you want to be heard.
Exactly. And I think it's great that the Australian Party especially said that, we are there to stand behind you. So if you stumble a little bit, they're going to catch you.
Yeah.
But I do agree on a journalistic sense that there's only so much they can do. But then there's journalists like myself. There's journalists everywhere, and there's a good handful that will listen and do want to hear your stories.
Absolutely.
And put it out there for everyone to realise, because there are things happening in the bush that people in the city just don't honestly understand.
Yeah, absolutely. And we're much the same here. If you have got a story and you want to share it, 4658 3333, we're always happy to take those stories. Erin, we're going to have to leave it there, but we'll get you back next week, because I know that you've got plenty more to say about all of this. So thank you very much for joining me this morning.
No worries. Thanks, Courtney, and I'll see you guys next week.
No worries. It's Classic Hits on 1098 4LG. On the way for you next, it's your 8:30 local news.
Classic Hits.